All right,
Oh,
ladies and
hello everyone. Welcome
gentlemen,
to the
it
stream.
appears that the
Oh, can't hear anything. One moment. One moment. All right, we're back. So we're gonna check out some Lupa information and some other Wuthering Waves stuff, and then get into actual playing in a bit after watching a couple videos. So if you enjoy, please make sure to leave a like and a comment, and please subscribe. We're gonna get into some Lupa information, a new up and coming Wuthering Waves character after Carthea, and she seems pretty exciting as well. So let's see what she can do.
Second limited character, second 5-star unit that's going to be coming in version 2.4 is finally here. And they've brought a lot of clues for what's going to actually be coming in that update. Some of the weapon types that they're going to be using, because of course, this is a pretty unique spear-looking halberd thing we got over here. And some...
Post-Lamont, I can't say it right. Entropy stars intertwine. Just ignore the intention, warrior. If victory is ours to savor. Lupa archive. The star gladiator Sepina, the star gladiator of Sepitimont. A warrior with pure heart and untamed spirit, intense passion and immense potential. She will relentlessly pursue the
references to some past releases that the game has had. I think it's pretty clear from what we're seeing over here what type of attribute this character is going to be and the kind of themes that they're going to have. They kind of remind me, in all honesty, they remind me of a fusion version of Jian, because they've got like their spear, they've clearly got like some sort of like fiery wolf going on over here, and we all know Jian has that similar sort of aesthetic, right, where he's got the spear that summons the green dragon. And yeah, that's going to be what I'm thinking just from the perspective of you know, character design, the weapon that they're using. Now let's actually
also, this is, we're watching, I forgot to say, we're watching a video from Saint Tuntas, by the way. Make sure to check him out as well.
Get into a little bit of their lore and maybe what I think they're going to be serving, what type of role they're going to be playing on some of their teams moving forward, because they hopefully should fill in a very needed gap on the roster that's let's be honest here, that hasn't been filled in a really long time.
I think he's gonna
so with that,
fire.
Let's start breaking down the post over here. Post lament, whatever. Just ignore the attention, warrior.
Yeah, he couldn't even say it.
Ours to savor, and that's from Lupa.
That word was hard as hell to say. Entropy, entropy, entropy. That's
The
just
Star
hard as hell to
Gladiator
say.
of Septimont, which is what I'm imagining is the newest region that either is related to Renacita or maybe is completely separate from Renacita. The Star Gladiator of Septimont, a warrior with pure heart, untamed spirit, intense passion, and immense potential. She will relentlessly pursue the things she admires, cherishing each moment that allows her to indulge in competition and self-expression on stage. And so, yeah, we can kind of tell she might be one of the most aggressive, the most battle-filled characters that we have probably releasing in 2.0. I don't think we've had this sort of like aesthetic, this sort of vibe yet. And you can see she summons the wolves over.
I'm also kind of getting like kill from her too, like with the sparks and the way the rocks is cracking with the energy, look in the stars and everything. And she kind of got the colorful energy going on around her with the blues and the yellows and the reds and orange.
Here, they're probably going to play an essential part of her kit. And we even have like a teaser of what Septimont, that new region, is going to be looking like. And so right off the bat, what I wanted to talk about when it comes to Septimont is the fact that they have this in the background. If you're all familiar with how drip marketing, teasers, all of that stuff has worked in the past, you would know that this kind of represents, behind the name, what you're seeing over here, that represents almost like the sentinel of the region. And so what this means is that Septimont might actually be considered a completely separate expansion, much like how Renacida and
new
Raguda
expansion.
were
I thought
considered
he was about to say Lupa was a new sentinel resonator already to appear. I was like, no way. That would have been crazy. Sorry, my Wuthering Waves soundtrack is playing in the background. Something's wrong with my game.
expansion. Let's just go ahead and explore. We've got Cartithia's drip marketing over here. We can clearly see we've got the hippocampus, right? We've got all of like the Imperator fused with the Thronodian, representing Raguda over here, and that's going to be behind Cartithia's name. And so it clearly means something that when it comes to Septimont and Lupa's release, we've got something entirely
so a whole new
completely
region
separate over here.
Okay, that makes sense. We're probably getting a whole new region because that looks like a whole new what should I call it? Terminal.
And I think Kuro did mention that there was going to be a big region expansion every 6 months. And so we can imagine that 2.4 might be one of the biggest patches, one of the biggest map expansions that we've had in a really, really, really long time.
That means Lupa probably about to be correct. Lupa probably about to be correct.
It actually feels like it hasn't been that long since then. So yeah, I mean, this is looking like a bit of like a griffin. It looks like it's actually holding a weapon too. Who knows how related it is to Renacida as a whole, or how separate it actually is going to be. But I think that implies that there's a lot for us to get excited about. And
they
one thing to
sneakily
keep in
hide
mind
her,
is that they
her
have
terminal too. Like you can't even see her terminal anywhere. She's probably going to be on the back of her butt, where the back of her hip, or like to her lower butt.
Gladiator Arena, because of course, how else can you have the Star Gladiator? Unless you have a Gladiator Arena. So we can see over here, she's very like impassioned, has a very, fierce desire for battle. And, if I could compare her to an existing character, just from like her design and everything that's going on over here, I would say she actually reminds me a lot of Camellia. Probably not as crazy or as, mentally deranged or, as much baggage as Camellia herself. But, that probably is the most like battle fueled.
I can see with the hair. Maybe with the personality a little bit what she was about to go into. Let's say not too much else though.
Character we've had on the roster yet, but probably won't be
Wuthering
going
Waves
down that sort of vibe too much.
Wuthering
Those
Waves
familiar
is not
with some
acting right.
other games under the Kuro umbrella have been drawing a lot of comparisons to her design with Vera, who is like a punishing gray raven character that has been in the game for an extremely long time, has a bunch of different forms, and a lot of people are saying like this.
She's hot. She's hot. I like her.
Say it's an XP of her. And I think it's fair to say I can see where they're coming from, because the weapon is it's the same photo, right? The weapon is essentially the same exact photo. They both got like the long like
almost,
spear,
but her spear is giving really kill out kill. It look like the scissor, but like extended down the middle instead of it being a short blade.
Blade thing going on. This Vera is one that just came out on CN, is coming to global soon, so hopefully you can see some sort of relation over there. They might have similar kits. Oh, and Vera also uses fire. She also uses a lot of fire. So with that, we have an idea of the weapon that she's using. We have pretty much a confirmation of her attribute.
We're gonna actually get a new weapon type.
If this isn't fusion,
like, are we gonna get a fifth new weapon type, or is this gonna be another thing where she uses a sword that transforms into a spear?
Then I don't really know what the devs are doing anymore with the design of the game. They're probably getting way too confusing with it. Now that we've talked a little bit about her design, we talked a little bit about what attribute role she's going to be playing, let's talk about Fusion as a whole. And boy, oh boy, there has been a gap missing in the Fusion roster for a very, very long time.
I knew he was going to say that.
I'm going to have to talk about a character that you all know.
I knew he was going to talk about the Fusion. Because Fusion we haven't gotten a heavy hitting Fusion main DPS, I think, since like Chang Li. And she's not even really main DPS, right? She's like sub DPS.
Oh, I have a very interesting relationship with. That, ladies and gentlemen, is Chang Li. Because, let's be honest here, there has been something missing with Chang Li and her design for a very long time, ever since she released almost a year ago in version 1.1. And that is whatever the fuck this is supposed to be. This outro skill that for, I mean, it's been at least 7 or 8 versions of the game. She was released in version 1.1. And up until now, Chang Li has not had a proper recipient of this outro skill. Nobody's been able to use it properly. There is no fusion character on the roster that deals like a...
I'm not gonna lie, that is crazy. Kind of starting to feel like we have a little bit of a dot situation right here with the fire. With solar. Oh.
Time to get back to work.
Almost messed up.
Enough meaningful resonance liberation damage for her to actually properly buff and gain as much utility or as much like buffing potential possible out of this outro skill. You have Encore, who's basic attack. You have Chisha, who does like a mix of damage. You have Brant, that's also basic attack. You have Mortifi, who kind of isn't really supposed to use this because he swaps off field for coordinated attacks and then loses the buff. And so, really, it genuinely feels like if Lupa isn't the one that's fusion damage and resonance liberation damage, who fucking knows when Chang Li's actually going to find somebody that actually uses this buff?
I'm almost positive Lupa's going to be the one. I'm almost certain Lupa's going to be it.
Properly. And
Lupa stock's going up for sure.
Ladies and gentlemen, is that Chang Li's swimsuit bikini skin is also going to be releasing in 2.4, and so all signs are kind of pointing to a Chang Li rerun. And when we've seen how other characters have
Lupa's definitely going to be the one there for
release,
sure.
Right?
They're lining it up
with her. Coincidentally, Carlotta's a resonance skill damage dealer, right? And then you had Jeja come in, who is a resonance skill and glacial buffer. And so yeah, a lot of people are imagining that Chang Li is going to be the premier buffer for Lupa, because
for sure,
let's be honest here, guys, he hasn't had one yet. He has not had a proper team.
Lupa's the one.
Use this outro skill.
I'm positive.
After almost a year of release, it's finally time for something like that to happen. That's going to be my initial take on the role. Who knows? Maybe the best in slot team is going to be like a combo of like Grant, who goes ahead and then, you know, with his fusion and resonance skill damage buffs Chang Li, who does resonance skill damage, and then Chang Li goes ahead and then buffs Lupa, and then who the fuck knows what Lupa is going to do. Maybe she just ends the rotation over there, and then you just start off with like Grant again. That would kind of be like a triple DPS lineup that we haven't really seen fully yet in this game, but we have seen clues of triple DPS lineups in other attributes, such as with Cantarella, where she has a Havoc and Resonance skill damage amplification that currently nobody in this game actually uses. And then Cantarella, right, mainly does basic attack damage over here, as you can see from her perception drain. And then Rosia is considered a decent buffer for her as well. So there might be a triple DPS team coming up for Havoc, where you have like Rosia, you have Cantarella, and then you have like a third DPS coming in that probably does Havoc resonance skill damage. So that's what some of the archetypes that we see coming up. Who knows? Maybe Lupa's gonna have like something that buffs Brant, but it's pretty clear over here with Brant providing healing and shielding. Brant providing healing and shielding from his anchor, buffing Chang Li, and then Chang Li buffing Lupa. I do think that's going to be a pretty interesting team.
That's probably going to be a cool team.
If, it's a big if, Lupa does resonance liberation damage.
Even if he doesn't, I still think it's going to be a fire team. Like, I'm sure she's going to do big damage for liberation regardless. She definitely looks like it. So, I'm feeling good about that.
But if she doesn't, and she's something completely different, if she's not actually fusion, and I guess if she doesn't deal resonance liberation damage, I guess Chang Li might as well just go fuck herself for another patch. Maybe her teammate's going to come out in 2026. I personally think she's waited long enough, and that's why I and many other people are thinking that this is going to be our fusion liberation damage deal. But with that, we talked a little bit about her role. We've also gotten, I pre-watched this one a little bit, we also got some clues about her weapon. Let's go ahead and give this one a listen. Okay. That's some pretty hype music, I'm not gonna lie. That's some pretty solid stuff. Let's see what the close-ups were like over here. Okay, we start off with the fire. Usually, Kuro gives us a pretty solid clue on the attribute that the character is gonna be, starting off with, like, the very first flame, and this is just a close-up of, like, literal fire. So.
Yeah.
We got, like, the flag, spear sort of thing going on over here.
Sure.
You think she's Spectra? Okay. Even more fire.
Now, if she was Spectro, if Lupa was Spectro, that would be hilarious. That would be actually funny as hell. With a slap in the face to players that are waiting for actual viable solar DPS. That would be so funny.
Fire over here. Close up of well, we all know who they're appealing to with this one. We all know who they're appealing to with this one over here.
The feats.
And then we got her looking feisty as hell in the close-up. Her outfit is pretty interesting. It looks like a skin-tight bodysuit. Kind of goes like all the way. It's got like a couple of gaps in the clothing. You can see her tacit mark over here, actually. It's kind of like on the side of her hip and ribs. I'm not gonna lie, if you wanted to get like this tattoo in real life, this would be pretty goddamn painful. So yeah, you can clearly see her tacit mark over here. They're not really trying to hide it very much at all. So, you know, as we all know with every single liberation animation, you end up getting like a close-up of it somewhere. But yeah, just ignore the attention warrior. The victory is ours to savor. So really, really nice cinematic over there doing some of the drip. Now let's read what they actually got in here. Flame erupts from within her body as she channels the full force of fire.
Oh, Spectro? Spectro?
Is it clear now, ladies and gentlemen? Is it clear yet?
Spectro.
Into the broad blade.
Nah, it's obviously fire.
So I don't know if this is a mistranslation
Broad
issue.
blade?
I don't know if this is something that they sort of like messed up when they were writing this. Maybe this is supposed to say spear, but if we're supposed to take this at face value, she is more like Gian than we might have actually thought. Because Gian is also a broad blade user that ends up using a spear, and it looks like she's also going to be a broad blade user that ends up using a spear. Yeah, I don't think that's necessarily an issue. And we also don't have, just as a note, we don't really have a limited broad blade user that does liberation damage. And if that's what her weapon ends up buffing, then Calcharo might actually become a way more viable unit, because he'll have a 5-star weapon that if she does liberation damage, because of everything we talked about before, he might have a weapon that actually works for him and actually buffs his main damage type.
Oh, my brother will love that. My brother will love that because he loves Calcharo. So hopefully.
So, yeah, again, we already have Resonant Skill. We already have Heavy Attack. I guess we don't have a basic attack-focused Fusion Broadblade. But if Lupa is also basic attack damage, I think that these devs are absolutely cooked. Because we already have Brant, and we already have Encore. We literally already have 2 Fusion basic attack damage-focused characters, and we don't have a Liberation one yet. And so that's just kind of like more of a clue to me that she's not going to be basic and she is going to be liberation. With a pleasant smile, she dives into the heat of battle, her wolf-like instincts guiding her to track down enemies and strike down villains. Yeah, that's what Lupa means. It actually means wolf in Spanish.
Lupa means
perfectly
wolf, yeah.
in theme. And we can see over here, she's probably going to summon some wolves, some fiery wolves to go attack her enemies across her animation. Yeah, I mean, overall, I think there's a lot to be excited about. I think that there's more to be
I'm very excited for Lupa. I'm definitely going to be pulling for her. And you hope you guys are there when I stream it as well. Because I'll be streaming when Karthia drops. Cause I'll be pulling a bunch of her probably. Because I really want to get a couple copies for her. And I'll be pulling for Coconia, her and her weapon most likely. Karthia and her weapon as well. Lupa and her weapon probably as well. Yeah, probably I am for all 3 of them. So hope to see you guys there, but continue the video.
Excited about if you already own some of the Fusion characters. And so I would say, but again, take my words with a grain of salt, because obviously nothing is confirmed. I think that people have been complaining actively. I've seen people complaining actively on YouTube about how there's like no leaks at all about version 2.4. So again, this is just like entirely speculation what we're talking about. I would say if you're super excited for her, this is just my take. If you're super excited for her and you really want to get her, then maybe it's worth thinking about potentially exploring getting, you know, a Chang Li or getting a Brant if you already have a Chang Li, because Brant is basically Chang Li's best partner on that second round of the anniversary banners. If you do have some extra savings, you're not that interested in like Spectral Frazzle, you're not that interested in Arrow Erosion or Kartithia, just to like maybe round out this team and maybe see where it goes.
Erosion and
Because
Kartithia.
Brant always is going to work with Chang Li, and the assumption is that Chang Li is going to work with Lupa. So again,
Karthia.
don't take my words as like full truth, but that's what I think is going to be a good combination in the future. And if you don't have either, we know for sure that Chang Li is going to be rerunning, or I don't think we know for sure, but I would hope that Chang Li is rerunning in version 2.4, because why the fuck else would they be releasing her skin during that patch if she wasn't going to be available? That's really good. That's probably one of the worst ways they could ever market the character. One last thing that I want to talk about when it comes to Lupa is that if she's not liberation damage focused, she might actually be debuff focused due to all the work that we've been seeing for elements or for attributes like Spectral Frazzle and Arrow Erosion. It could turn out that Fusion Burst, which essentially has like a stackable debuff that when it reaches a certain level, I do believe it's about 10, it'll ignite and deal a burst of damage to the enemy. And so Lupa could also be a character that begins this archetype, and then that archetype is going to be getting some support. However, I still think that Kuro has almost like a responsibility at this point to complete and give Chang Li an ideal partner. And so that's why I'm not too confident about this, because I do think a lot of existing maybe Chang Li owners would be very upset that they're going ahead and they're starting out a new archetype when they are, you know, kind of leaving like their work unfinished with some of the existing members on the roster. But we'll just have to see when it comes to our kit reveal what they actually end up doing, because as we all know,
I hope that's not the case, because we haven't had a good like fire attacker, like main attacker for a minute now. So I hopefully Lupa is the one.
everything is subject to change, and, you know, maybe they'll decide to go down the debuff route instead. It would be unfortunate, but it is something that we have to keep in mind. So with that, that's going to be my overview. That's going to be our little chat about Lupa. I think that she has an amazing design, and I hope she fills in a role on the roster that we just haven't had a lot to do with. Let me know what you all think. Peace.
Now at long last, the highly anticipated...
All right.
That was a great one from Mr. St. Tonatas. As usual, I hope you guys enjoyed. Please make sure to leave a like and a comment. And please subscribe. I need all the love support I can get. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace. Alright,
Ladies and gentlemen, it appears that the second...
Now at long last, the highly anticipated 2.4 drip marketing has officially been revealed, and as most of us pretty much did expect, the first phase will be featuring none other than Kartithia, and then for the second phase, we are actually receiving a brand new character being Lupa, which also is from a completely new region, and I expect we will be seeing for the first time within the main story of version 2.4. Now it goes without saying that
Also, this is from the YouTuber Ragnarok. Very good, reliable, Wuthering ways, and just overall gotcha YouTuber that gives very reliable news usually. But that's very interesting. We're gonna get a new region before we're getting Perlova.
Kartithia is going to be an absolute monster of a character, as she combines the powers of both the Sentinel and the Threnodian. So then for Lupa to release after potentially the most powerful character in the game, she will most likely have a few unique traits and abilities to offer in order to more or less compete. So especially since after the anniversary banners draining, I suspect, a lot of players, it will be a bit difficult to consider who to prioritize, as both 2.4 characters do look amazing and definitely hold insane potential. So with that, I'll be going over both Kartithia and Lupa's kid standout / speculations, the sort of team versatility each character will hold, then I'll be wrapping it up with their overall value and who would benefit your account in particular the most. As always, would really appreciate it if you could subscribe for more Wuthering Waves content and drop a like if you enjoyed the video. But just before
Make sure
we
you drop a
dive
like,
right
guys.
in, if you are perhaps looking to pick up some Lunites to ensure you can pick up a character or two during quite likely the most expensive time period yet
Ooh, that's
in
a long
Wuthering Waves,
sponsor.
then you'll definitely want to check out this sponsor. Lootbar is a safe and reliable top-up platform that allows you to pick up game currency for an even lower price than it. Starting this off with one of the most anticipated characters for a while now. Kartathea, as mentioned, is going to be dropping within the first phase and will be our new limited aero sword character. With that, it's a bit obvious that Kartathea is going to be a main DPS and will most likely revolve around the aero erosion mechanic, which is pretty much hinted by the existence of Chakona and the direction the meta is heading in. But just like Zani, there likely will be a secondary damage type that Kartathea's DPS scales off for the sake of flexibility. In addition to that, and again similar to Zani, it's pretty much a given from the drip marketing that Kartathea will have a transformation mechanic that allows her to switch into Fleur de Lis, which is probably going to be through deliberation and will definitely be the form that deals the most damage.
After this video, we
Now
might
specifically
go
with
back
Kartathea's
over to
abilities,
this.
considering once again she not only has the powers of the Sentinel but also the Threnodian, which lore-wise should allow her to be even more powerful in comparison to someone like Jin Chi, which only has the powers of a Sentinel, it would then only be right to see Kartathea deal more damage than any other DPS. So even though Zani has just released and has taken the title as the best DPS, it seems like it won't be lasting long, as Kartathea will most likely be taking the title for herself on her release. Although
Exciting
it's fair to mention that
news.
since
I'm
Wuthering
very
Waves
excited
does
for
a pretty
Kartathea.
good job in terms of not overdoing it and allowing even older characters to still feel great to play
Such a
with,
cool animation
I don't
for
believe
Zani.
Kartathea will deal that much more damage than Zani, and I really do hope that will be the case. Now lastly, in terms of Kartathea's gameplay, a shot in the dark here, but since we have seen Fleur de Lis fight within the 2.2 main story, and
This is
as
such a cool fight, the
hologram,
fact you get
she
shot
may
to all three
potentially have the
rovers. That shit
ability
was
to
so
attack
fire.
whilst in midair, similar to Jin Chi. Perhaps she may even be able to move freely whilst in midair, which I don't see being an issue, as the secondary form will of course be on a timer. Though with that being said, it does mean that Fleur de Lis will be able to avoid majority of enemies' attacks whilst up in midair and raining down tons of damage at the same time, which would definitely make her not only potentially the best DPS in the game, but also one of the most comfortable DPS characters to play with.
This makes me wanna.
Now Kartathea's
Right
team
now.
versatility, I understand, will be the most concerning aspect surrounding the character, but contrary to current beliefs stemming from the Zani and Phoebe situation, I do believe that Kartathea will actually be a bit more flexible as a main DPS, even though her kit revolves around the aero erosion mechanic, purely due to the fact that Chakona is the only aero character that can inflict stacks of aero erosion, opposed to both Phoebe and Spectra Rover being able to inflict stacks of Spectra Frazzle. So with that, it does mean that Kartathea has potential to inflict stacks of aero erosion herself, just in order to compensate for the lack of an alternative option for Chakona. Now with that being the case, it also allows the Gust of Welkin set to be a viable option for Kartathea. Given if she does have the ability to inflict stacks of aero erosion, then she can activate the 5-piece effect, which requires the character to inflict stacks of aero erosion. So essentially, Kartathea will be able to synergize with the characters that can amplify the secondary damage type that her DPS scales off quite well, which I personally suspect will be either basic attack damage or resonant skill damage. In
Probably
addition
skill
to that,
damage.
it's fair to mention that Alto will be a viable alternative due to his 23% aero damage amplification, which isn't exactly amongst the more valuable outro skills in the game, but for those that do use Alto, you will finally have another character you can utilize him with. Lastly, due to the fact that Aero Rover can convert any debuff into aero erosion, it does in fact allow Phoebe to synergize with Kartathea once Rover is on the team. But I'll stress that Phoebe's value does depend on whether Kartathea relies
Phoebe
on
over
aero.
here, out here on her freaking Hufflepuffs. Her freaking, I forget what that shit's called, the brooms from Harry Potter. Shit is crazy out here really trying to get the golden
Erosion being
snitch.
inflicted as much as Zani relies on Spectra Frazzle. So with that, it's clear to see that there will be a handful of solid alternatives for Kartathea. But without a doubt, the Kartathea, Chakona and Aero Rover composition will objectively be the best team. given Carter Thea and Chacona will pretty much synergize like Zani and Phoebe, in which Chacona amplifies Carter Thea's aero erosion damage by 100%, but also amplifies aero damage bonus by a total of 39% with the Gusts of Vulcan set equipped, inflicts multiple stacks of aero erosion, deals considerable damage, and crowd controls enemies for Carter Thea to deal damage more efficiently. Then with Aero Rover to extend those aero erosion stacks through the outro whilst healing and dealing solid damage themselves. It goes without saying that the aero erosion team will be one hell of a busted team that synergizes extremely well. Now with Looper dropping within the second phase, despite the character herself not really being expected to drop, the opposite could be said for her potential kit and abilities. Looper is going to be our third limited fusion character, and purely due to the existence of both Chang-Li and Brant, Looper will most likely be a fusion main DPS / sub DPS. Following the release of Brant and his ability to play as a support due to his healing abilities, which leads to Chang-Li being placed in the second slot to receive Brant's outro buff, it has led to the expectation of us receiving a new fusion main DPS ever since. So with being able to synergize with both Brant and Chang-Li, Looper's DPS will likely scale off Resonance Liberation damage, and in specific she will be a burst damage dealer, which pretty much means there will be one or two abilities within Looper's kit that deal a significant amount of damage similar to Brant and Chang-Li. In addition to that, considering she does have to somewhat compete with the most powerful DPS in the game being just before her release, I would then expect Looper to be one of the more fun DPS characters to play with and may have insane agility to blitz around and through enemies. A bit similar to the difference between Jin Chi and Chang-Li's playstyles back in version 1.1. Now more as a rumor from a while back, Looper may have the ability to deal more damage scaling off the HP she sacrifices, which a lot of us may already be familiar with from our Crimson Head hidden 5-star Dan Jin. So then, with that mechanic, it would of course make Looper more fun to play with due to the huge adrenaline rush. But also at the same time, it will be a bit more risky to play with Looper as you will need to be quite good with parrying and dodging. Although, since Brant can heal and provide a shield to allies, not only does it make the HP scaling mechanic a bit more believable for Looper, but also would allow Looper to be a bit easier to play with despite sacrificing her HP. Now lastly, even though Looper will play as a main DPS within the mono fusion composition, she likely would have an outro skill to amplify fusion damage by 20% and basic attack damage by 25%. Given as you do cycle back from Looper once ending her rotation, she will then be able to empower Brant to be able to deal significantly more damage. So technically, even though Looper will likely be utilized as a main damage dealer within her premium composition, she does have the ability to also play as a sub/dual DPS. Now then, as for
Looper, I can see that too. That's one thing I said earlier. I believe in the video that she looked like she could be a sub main DPS.
Looper's team versatility, aside from the fact that she will synergize with Chang-Li and Brant within the monofusion team, which will in specific be her best composition, if she does have an outro skill that can amplify fusion damage and basic attack damage, it does mean she would then have solid versatility, considering there are other fusion characters such as Encore and Chishia that would greatly benefit from the fusion damage amplification, whilst Encore also benefiting from the basic attack damage amplification just as much. In addition, there are characters such as Camellia and Havoc Rover that do utilize their basic attacks quite often, which would then allow them to benefit from the basic attack damage amplification from Looper. Although I wouldn't really suggest for Looper to play alongside them, as you do already have Sanwa to provide a much higher basic attack damage amplification. But I guess they do still work if your Sanwa is occupied somewhere else. Now as a main damage dealer, if Looper's DPS does in fact scale off Resonance Liberation damage, it does mean characters such as Yanlin and Jian Qin would synergize quite well with Looper. Jian Qin in specific may actually synergize much more and will be quite useful even as a standard character, due to the fact that not only will she be able to amplify Looper's damage, but can heal and provide a shield to Looper to be more comfortable to play with if you don't have Brant. So with that, Looper will of course again be utilized at her best within the monofusion composition, but she can synergize alongside quite a few other characters if you don't have either Chang-Li or Brant. So overall, between both of our DPS characters dropping within version 2.4, since Kartathea is strictly going to be a main DPS opposed to Lupa being able to play as either main DPS or sub DPS, along with the fact that Kartathea again does have the powers of both the Sentinel and Threnodian, not only is it fair to expect for her to deal the most damage between the two, but it's quite likely the case that she will deal more damage than any other DPS once in her premium composition. However, due to the fact that Lupa won't be the only one dealing significant damage within her premium composition, it does mean that the Monofusion composition together also has potential to be one of the strongest teams in their game. So pretty much you really can't go wrong with either character in 2.4. But for those that may need to prioritize one due to having no Ashtrites left after the anniversary, if you do want the strongest DPS that most likely will remain at least top 3 for a while, along with the fact if you do intend to pick up Chacona, then Kartathea will be the best character to pick up. Of course, being right after Chacona will make picking up Kartathea a bit of an issue for most players. But if you are able to, then it would definitely be worth considering to prioritize Kartathea.
It will be done.
Additionally, as Era Rover is a free character for every player, technically the Era Erosion team will then be much easier to build than other compositions. Now on the other hand, if you have already picked up Changli and Brant on your account, then you would obviously want to consider picking up Lupa to finish off the Monofusion team, which I believe will certainly be one of the best and most fun teams in their game. Although, if you aren't a fan of Lupa's potential HP draining mechanic, given it will require for you to sweat a bit more and more so if you don't have Brant, then you may want to consider skipping Lupa, and especially since she isn't actually a
As if she even has HP drain mechanic, that is.
must for the fusion team, since Changli and Brant along with the healer do perform exceptionally well already. So with that, both Kartathea and Lupa are definitely going to be incredible characters, and the one you may want to prioritize will depend on the teams you have built. Of course, along with the direction you are building your account in. But again, you really can't go wrong with either, as they both provide amazing value and DPS potential for your account. And with that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'd really appreciate it if you could subscribe for more Wuthering Waves content, and if you enjoyed the video, drop a like. Also drop a comment down below on who are you looking forward to the most between Kartathea and Lupa. And yeah, hope to catch you guys later.
Hey, beautiful.
Alright, before we continue on to this video, guys, I just wanted to check out some Lupa stuff real quick on the leaked subreddit, because apparently on the subreddit, her gameplay was slightly leaked. So, we're going to see what that looks like today. So, I hope you guys are excited. Here we go. This is the drip marketing like we showed before in the video. Animation in its full glory. Here's an Ashtrite count for 2.3. So it looks like we're getting at least free to play, 21 free pulls, 42 free golden Orbeez, I forget what they're called. 9k Asterite. And this is Battle Pass. And I forget what LS means. Here you go. Lupa early gameplay. And new boss included apparently too. You could barely see what the hell was going on. Oh. What the fuck? I don't know why you would do that. Let's see. People are really enjoying it. Can we get a proper image of Chun-Li's skin like it's like that pose doesn't really tell much? Oh wait, no, that's not the right thing. They're real during lashing. They keep the statistic for protect practically everything. No doubt in my mind that they can easily identify this guy. Remember that Arknights leaker guy who leaks used screenshots straight out from the company PC or something? Yeah, that dude is facing imprisonment and $100K fine. May this leaker do help be the god. Oh lord. Leaker going YOLO is what's happening. Leaker is either a newbie to all this NDA leaking stuff, so doesn't know about the consequences, or he simply has lifetime debt wished by Kuro. Is Leaker straight up? Let's see. Where is Carthea? Is she safe? Is she alright? It seems in their anger they killed her. How convenient. Suddenly we have so much leaks during the anniversary drama. Gameplay before 3D model leak. We got Lupa gameplay before their reveal. Solon himself at damage control. Future team about to become the most fun team in the game. At last, the final missing puzzle piece. Other elements linear setup to give the main DPS as many buffs as possible. Everyone has a unique role. We're gonna kill you. This is why I don't play hyper carry and triple DPS. The boss in a gangbang. It's become the PGR Premier Fire Team.